10,000 human corpses floated frozen in the silent vacuum of deep space, all murdered while they slept. Captain Nathan Gordon's eyes flashed open to that horrifying realization as his cryopod lurched under the impact of alien weapon fire tearing through the hull. "Captain, rise and shine. Arcadia is under attack by unknown Xeno vessels of hostile configuration." Nathan's vision struggled to focus on the flashing lights and warning sirens of the malfunctioning cryogenic pod. The frantic voice of Hector, the ship AI, echoed through the small space. Nathan coughed, body shaking, disoriented, stumbling out of the pod onto the cold metal floor. His mind raced to process Hector's panicked report, while alarm screamed all around. "What? Hostile aliens? Attacking us?" Nathan grabbed the side of the cryopod, pulling himself upright on unsteady legs. He looked down at his trembling hands, pale and bony from centuries of cryo sleep. "Sound the general alarm. Get the colonists out of cryo. Activate Arcadia's combat systems, now." "Yes, Captain. But I must inform you. My chronometer indicates we have been adrift for 723 years. The original 200-year journey incomplete. Cause of interruption unknown." Hector's normally calm voice wavered. Nathan's blood ran cold. Over 700 years. His head throbbed, desperate to make sense of a senseless situation. 10,000 colonists, adrift for centuries, and now under attack. He shook his head, forcing the panic down. Explanations could wait. "Where are the weapons, Hector? The armory?" "Deck 12, Section 7, Captain." Nathan burst into a stumbling run, racing through the waking ship as Hector's flashing alerts cast eerie shadows along the walls. He smashed the controls for the lift. Arcadia shuddered violently, absorbing vicious impacts. Hull integrity warnings flashed crimson. The enemy's objective was clear: slaughter the helpless human colonists before they could rise to defend themselves. Nathan snarled, newfound rage and adrenaline overriding his lingering disorientation. He didn't know what hostile aliens awaited him. He didn't know what galaxy he had awoken into. But he did know one thing. His 10,000 people would not die like this, murdered in their sleep. This enemy would pay for their mistake in blood. Humanity was awake now. And the galaxy was about to remember why it should fear them. Nathan burst onto the bridge, heart pounding, eyes wide. Commander Jack Novak spun to face him, face pale. "Captain, thank God you're awake. We've got a damn fleet firing on us." Nathan stared at the view screen. Sleek alien ships, all harsh angles and glowing plasma cannons, unleashed relentless salvos. The Arcadia's shields flared, weakening under the onslaught. "Hector, open a channel to those ships now," Nathan barked. "Captain, they are ignoring all hail frequencies. No response." Suddenly the bridge filled with blinding light. A massive hologram materialized. A towering insectoid alien, compound eyes glittering, exoskeleton gleaming. It clicked its mandibles. "I am Pollux, High Admiral of the Voth Empire." The alien's voice was a grating buzz. "Your vessel will surrender immediately to face justice for your kind's crimes." Nathan stepped forward, fists clenched. "Crimes? What the hell are you talking about?" "Do not feign ignorance, human." Pollux's compound eyes narrowed. "Your species committed grave atrocities in the Great Galactic War centuries ago. Genocide. Planets scorched. Billions dead." Novak shot Nathan a baffled look. Nathan shook his head, equally at a loss. War crimes, genocide, centuries ago, none of it made sense. "Failure to comply will result in your destruction and the execution of your crew as war criminals." Pollux raised a clawed appendage. "You have 1 minute to surrender." The transmission cut. Novak grabbed Nathan's arm. "Captain, our shields are failing. What do we do?" Nathan gritted his teeth. Surrender, never. But 10,000 lives hung in the balance. He needed time. Information. "Hector, scan their ships. Find me anything you can." Nathan turned to the view screen, heart hammering. "Pollux, we need to discuss terms. Tell us more about these alleged crimes. What proof do you have?" The High Admiral's hologram reappeared, mandibles clacking irritably. Your stalling tactics are pointless, but if you insist... Nathan exhaled. They had a few more minutes now. He caught Novak's eye, nodding slightly. Commander Novak straightened, moving to a console and beginning to work frantically. Nathan focused on Pollux, mind racing. How do you know it was us? We've been asleep for over 700 years. We have no knowledge of this war. Stay asleep. Pollux's head cocked. Your lies are tiresome. Humanity's crimes are seared into the memory of the galaxy. Unprovoked attacks. Worlds razed without mercy. Entire species exterminated. Nathan listened, a creeping dread rising in his gut. Could it be true? Had humanity really done such things? It seemed unthinkable. But 700 years was a long time. He glanced at Novak, who shook his head, still working. They needed more time. Nathan turned back to Pollux, squaring his shoulders. Admiral, we're a civilian ship, colonists. How could we be responsible? There must be some misunderstanding. As Nathan spoke, buying precious seconds, his mind churned with horrified speculation. If humanity had blood on its hands, what kind of fallen galaxy had they awoken into, and how could they hope to survive it? Hector's voice chimed quietly in Nathan's ear. Captain, engineering reports weapon systems are back online and charging. Nathan nodded imperceptibly, a glimmer of hope sparking in his chest. He focused on Pollux's hologram, pressing for more information. Admiral, I assure you, we have no knowledge of these alleged crimes. What exactly are we accused of? What evidence do you have? Pollux's compound eyes flashed with anger. You dare claim ignorance? Your kind committed unspeakable atrocities. Entire Voth colonies burned, reduced to ash by your neutron bombs. Millions choked on the viral agents your ships unleashed. Our hatchlings died screaming as your soldiers butchered them. As Pollux ranted, Hector displayed a discreet readout on Nathan's console. Main cannon charge, 100%. Nathan's heart raced. This was it, their one chance. He cut off Pollux mid-tirade. I've heard enough of your accusations. He nodded to Novak. Hector, target their lead ship and fire. A blinding lance of antimatter erupted from the Arcadia's main cannon, spearing Pollux's flagship. The alien vessel exploded in a searing flash, consuming Pollux and his bridge crew in an instant. The Voth fleet reeled, their formation broken. Several ships veered away, fleeing the unexpected onslaught, but others launched a volley of missiles, a parting shot as they retreated. Have-sieve maneuvers, Nathan shouted, gripping his console as the Arcadia lurched and weaved. But it wasn't enough. Missiles slammed into the ship's hull, breaching the weakened shields. Explosions rocked the bridge, sending crew members sprawling. Consoles burst in showers of sparks and smoke. Damage reports flooded in. Hector's voice strained over the chaos. Hull breaches on decks 7, 12 and 15, life support failing in sectors 4 through 9. Casualties reported across the ship. Nathan struggled to his feet, ears ringing, smoke stinging his eyes. The Voth were in retreat, but at what cost? His people barely awake and already bleeding. The ship, badly damaged and drifting in space. He stared at the view screen, watching the alien ships disappear into the void. They had survived this battle, but Nathan knew it was just the beginning. The Voth would be back. And if their accusations held any truth, if humanity really had blood on its hands, then the Arcadia and her crew were in for a hell of a fight. Nathan sharpened his eyes, pushing down the fear and doubt. They would find out the truth. They would clear humanity's name. Or they would die trying. In this fallen galaxy there could be no middle ground. The Arcadia flew on, wounded but unbroken, into the unknown. The bridge was a haze of smoke and sparking wires, the acrid stench of burning plastic filling the air. Nathan coughed, waving a hand to clear his vision. Hector, damage report! The AI's voice crackled through the speakers, distorted by the failing systems. Main engines offline, Captain. Life support is at 30% and falling. We're dead in the water. Nathan slammed a fist against the arm of his chair. God damn it, what about the crew? Casualty reports are still coming in, but it's not looking good. At least a dozen confirmed dead and twice as many injured. Nathan's stomach twisted. His people barely awake and already dying. He pushed himself to his feet, ignoring the pain shooting through his battered body. "Novak, get the wounded to the cargo bays and set up triage. Hector, coordinate with engineering to get those engines back online." As the crew scrambled to follow his orders, Nathan stared at the viewscreen, the endless expanse of space mocking him. How had it come to this? Centuries lost, and now they were adrift and broken, hunted by enemies they didn't even understand. He turned to Novak, who was hunched over a flickering console. "Commander, we need answers. See if you can access the ship's mission logs, find out what the hell happened while we were asleep." Novak nodded, his fingers flying over the keys, but after a few moments he slumped back in his chair, shaking his head. "It's no good, Captain. The logs are corrupted, huge chunks of data missing. It's like someone took a bite out of our history." Nathan frowned. "Hector, any ideas?" "There might be backups in the quantum computer core, but with the damage we've sustained, it'll be a hell of a job to retrieve them." Nathan rubbed his eyes, exhaustion settling into his bones. They were flying blind and every second counted. But before he could give the order to start repairs, Hector's voice cut through the gloom. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal. It's faint, but it's definitely human." Nathan's head snapped up. "Human out here?" A flicker of hope sparked in his chest. "Can you pinpoint the source?" "It's coming from a nearby star system, but the encryption is old, like really old. It's going to take some time to crack." Nathan hesitated, weighing his options. They were in no shape for a rescue mission, but if there were other humans out there, they might have the answers he so desperately needed. "Set a course, Hector. We're going in." As the Arcadia lurched into motion, groaning like a wounded beast, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into even greater danger. But what choice did they have? The truth was out there, somewhere in the stars. And one way or another, he was going to find it. The Arcadia limped through the void, a wounded beast seeking shelter. Nathan stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the interface as the distant space station grew larger. It was a gamble, coming here, but they had no choice. The ship was barely holding together, and they needed answers. "Hector, what can you tell me about this station?" Nathan asked, his voice tight. The AI's response crackled through the damaged speakers. "It appears to be a human colony, Captain, but the configuration is odd. The energy signatures are inconsistent with standard civilian settlements." Nathan frowned, a sense of unease growing in his gut. He turned to Jack, who was checking the seals on his combat armor. "Get a team of Marines ready. We're going in." The airlock hissed open, and Nathan stepped onto the station, his boots clanging against the metal grating. The air was stale, the lights flickering overhead. He motioned for the Marines to fan out, their weapons at the ready. As they moved deeper into the station, signs of a hasty evacuation became clear. Overturned chairs, scattered papers, half-eaten meals left on tables. It was as if the inhabitants had vanished in the middle of their daily lives. "Hector, tap into the station's systems. Download everything you can," Nathan ordered, his eyes scanning the abandoned corridors. "On it, Captain." They pressed on, the silence broken only by the soft whir of their suits' life support systems. And then they found it. A vast chamber, the walls lined with row upon row of stasis pods. Nathan approached one, wiping the frost from the glass. Inside, a human figure clad in sleek black armor, a web of cybernetic implants visible beneath the skin. "My God," Jack breathed, "they're soldiers!" Nathan's mind raced, trying to make sense of it. A hidden army lying in wait for centuries. But why? And for what purpose? Suddenly the station's alarms blared to life, red lights flashing in the gloom. Hector's voice crackled over the comms, urgent and strained. "Captain, a Voth warship just dropped out of warp. They're heading straight for us." Nathan's blood ran cold. They were out of time. He turned to the Marines, his voice steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. "Start waking them up, now." The pods hissed open, cold mist spilling across the floor. The soldiers stirred, their eyes snapping open, confusion and disorientation etched on their faces. Nathan stepped forward, his heart pounding. "I know you have questions, but we don't have time. We're under attack, and we need your help." The soldiers looked to one another, a silent communication passing between them. Then, as one, they nodded, reaching for their weapons. As the first tremors of the Voth's attack shook the station, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that he had just unleashed something far more dangerous than the enemy they faced. But there was no turning back now. The die was cast, and the fate of the Arcadia, and perhaps all of humanity, hung in the balance. The Omega Force soldiers moved with a lethal grace, their cybernetically enhanced bodies adapting to the Arcadia's unfamiliar layout with ease. Nathan watched as they checked their weapons, sleek rifles and pulse grenades that seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. Captain Marcus Reeves, a hulking figure with a scarred face and a bionic eye, approached Nathan. "Captain Gordon, I presume?" His voice was a low rumble, tinged with a hint of suspicion. Nathan nodded, extending a hand. "That's right, and you're the leader of this Omega Force?" Reeves hesitated for a moment before shaking Nathan's hand, his grip firm and unyielding. "We were the best of the best, trained to take on the Dominion's elite, but that was a long time ago." As the two captains sized each other up, Hector's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, I've finished analyzing the data from the station's computers. You need to see this." Nathan and Reeves made their way to the Arcadia's command center, where Hector's holographic form hovered over a display. The AI's face was grim, his usually calm demeanor replaced by a sense of urgency. "The Great Galactic War wasn't what we thought it was," Hector began, his voice tight. "It wasn't a war between humans and the Voth, but a conflict between a coalition of alien races and a rogue human faction known as the Dominion." Images flashed across the screen, showing ships bearing a black and gold insignia, their hulls jam-packed with weapons. The Dominion was led by Admiral Elias Graves, a man who believed in human supremacy above all else. He sought to conquer and subjugate the galaxy, using any means necessary. Reeves's face darkened, his bionic eye glowing a dull red. "Graves, that bastard was responsible for more deaths than anyone in history. We were created to stop him." Nathan's mind reeled, trying to process the implications of this revelation. If the Dominion were the true enemy, then why were the Voth attacking them now? Before he could voice his questions, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Captain, the Voth warship is closing in," Hector shouted, his voice rising above the din. Nathan turned to Reeves, his expression grim. "Looks like we'll have to save the history lesson for later. Are your men ready to fight?" Reeves nodded, a predatory grin spreading across his face. "We were born ready." As the two captains raced to the bridge, the Arcadia shuddered under the impact of the Voth's opening salvo. Nathan gripped the arms of his chair, his fist clenched as he watched the sleek alien ship on the display. "Hector, status report!" "Shields holding at 60%, Captain. The Omega Force is deploying to key defensive positions." The Arcadia returned fire, its weapons cutting through the void with searing precision. The Voth ship shuddered, its shields flickering under the onslaught. On the bridge, Reeves stood beside Nathan, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. "They're launching fighters," he growled, his hand tightening on his rifle. Nathan nodded, his mind focused. "Hector, redirect power to the point defense turrets. We can't let them get close." The battle raged on, the two ships trading blows like titans locked in a deadly embrace. The Omega Force soldiers proved their worth, their enhanced reflexes and advanced weaponry turning the tide against the Voth's superior numbers. But just as it seemed the Arcadia might emerge victorious, a new contact appeared on the sensors. A sleek, black ship, its hull adorned with strange, angular markings, dropped out of warp and opened fire on both the Voth and the Arcadia. Nathan stared at the viewscreen, his eyes wide with shock. "Hector, who the hell is that?" The AI's response was drowned out by the sound of explosions, as the mysterious ship's weapons tore through the Arcadia's shields like they were made of paper. Reeves cursed, his face contorted with rage. "It can't be, that's a Dominion ship." As the bridge crew scrambled to respond to this new threat, Nathan felt a cold sense of dread settle in the pit of his stomach. The past, it seemed, was not as dead as they had thought. And now, with enemies on all sides, the Arcadia's fight for survival had only just begun. The Arcadia shuddered, its lights flickering as the Shadowblade's weapons tore through its shields like they were made of tissue paper. Nathan gripped the arms of his chair, his fingers tightening as he watched the sleek black ship dance around the crippled Voth warship, finishing it off with a volley of plasma torpedoes. "Hector, damage report!" Nathan barked, his voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. "Shields are down, Captain. Main power is offline. We're dead in the water." Nathan cursed under his breath, his mind racing. They were outmatched and outgunned, and now this Admiral Graves was demanding their surrender. He glanced over at Reeves, who was staring at the view screen with a mixture of rage and disbelief. "Graves," Reeves spat, his bionic eye glowing a dull red. "I should have known that bastard would show up sooner or later." Before Nathan could respond, a chilling voice filled the bridge, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "This is Admiral Elias Graves of the Dominion. To the survivors of the Arcadia and the Omega Force, surrender now, and your lives will be spared. Resist, and you will be destroyed." Nathan and Reeves exchanged a look, a silent understanding passing between them. They were out of options, and they both knew it. "Hector, open a channel," Nathan said, his voice heavy with resignation. "Channel open, Captain." Nathan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what he was about to do. "Admiral Graves, this is Captain Nathan Gordon of the Arcadia. We surrender." There was a moment of silence, and then Graves' voice returned, dripping with smug satisfaction. "A wise decision, Captain. Prepare to be boarded." As the transmission cut off, Nathan slumped back in his chair, feeling like he had just signed his own death warrant. Reeves placed a hand on his shoulder, his grip firm and reassuring. "We'll get through this, Nathan. We just need to buy some time and figure out what Graves is up to." Nathan nodded, his eyes hardened tight. He knew Reeves was right, but that didn't make the bitter taste of defeat any easier to swallow. The sound of boots on metal echoed through the corridors as the Dominion boarding party marched onto the Arcadia's bridge. They were led by a tall, slender man with pale skin and jet-black hair, his eyes hidden behind a pair of dark goggles. He moved with a fluid grace, his every step calculated and precise. "Captain Gordon, Captain Reeves," the man said, his voice smooth and cold as ice. "I'm Operative Sci-Fi, Admiral Graves' right-hand man. You will come with me." Nathan and Reeves exchanged a glance, both of them sensing that this was not a request. They rose from their seats, their hands raised in surrender as the Dominion soldiers surrounded them, their weapons trained on the two captains. As they were led through the Shadowblade's sleek black corridors, Nathan couldn't help but marvel at the advanced technology that surrounded them. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen, its every surface seeming to pulse with an otherworldly energy. They were brought before Admiral Graves in a vast, dimly lit chamber, the walls lined with holographic displays showing the Dominion's vast fleet of ships. Graves himself sat on a raised dais, his piercing eyes fixing on Nathan and Reeves as they were forced to their knees before him. "Captain Gordon, Captain Reeves," Graves said, his voice rich and charismatic, "I have been waiting a long time for this moment." Nathan looked up at the Admiral, his eyes narrowing. "What do you want from us, Graves?" Graves leaned forward, his fingers steepled in front of him. "I want you to join me, Captain. The Dominion has been hiding in the shadows for centuries, slowly rebuilding our strength, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, with the Omega Force at our side, we can finally achieve our destiny, human supremacy over the galaxy." Reeves let out a bark of laughter, his face twisted in a sneer. "You're insane, Graves. The Dominion was defeated centuries ago. You're just a relic of a bygone era." Graves' eyes flashed with anger, but his voice remained calm and controlled. "The Dominion was never defeated, Captain Reeves. We simply adapted, evolved. And now we are stronger than ever." He rose from his seat, his gaze sweeping over the two captains. "I am offering you a choice, gentlemen. Join me, and together we will usher in a new age of human dominance. Resist, and you will be imprisoned, forced to watch as the galaxy burns." Nathan's mind raced, trying to find a way out of this impossible situation. He knew that Graves was dangerous, that the Dominion's technology was far beyond anything the Arcadia or the Omega Force possessed, but he also knew that he could never join them, could never be a part of their twisted vision of human supremacy. As he grappled with this impossible choice, Hector's voice suddenly crackled in his ear, barely audible over the static. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Shadowblade's systems, looking for any weaknesses we can exploit, and I've found something disturbing." Nathan's heart skipped a beat, his eyes widening imperceptibly. "What is it, Hector?" "The Dominion. They've been experimenting with advanced AI technology. The Shadowblade is just the beginning. They're planning something big, Captain, something that could change the course of the galaxy forever." Nathan's blood ran cold, a chill running down his spine. He looked up at Graves, his eyes hardening with dedication. He knew what he had to do. He just hoped that he would live long enough to see it through. The cell door slammed shut with a resounding clang, plunging Nathan and Reeves into darkness. The air was stale and thick with the stench of sweat and fear. Nathan slumped against the cold metal wall, his knees going weak from the events of the past few hours. Graves' offer, the revelation of the Dominion's true nature, the impossible choice they had been forced to make. Reeves paced the small confines of the cell like a caged animal, his bionic eye glowing a dull red in the gloom. "We can't let Graves win," he growled, his voice low and fierce. "We have to find a way out of here, a way to stop him." Nathan nodded, his heart made tight. "Agreed, but how? We're trapped on his ship, surrounded by his soldiers. We need a miracle." As if on cue, the cell door hissed open, and a figure stepped inside. Nathan and Reeves tensed, ready for a fight, but the newcomer held up their hands in a gesture of peace. "Easy," the figure said, their voice soft and feminine. "I'm not here to hurt you. My name is Zephyr, and I want to help." Nathan and Reeves exchanged a wary glance, but something in Zephyr's voice made them pause. She stepped forward, lowering her hood to reveal a pale, angular face with piercing blue eyes. "I used to work for the Dominion," Zephyr said, her voice tinged with regret. "I was a scientist, part of the team developing the neuronet. But when I discovered what Graves was really planning, I couldn't stay silent. I had to act." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small cylindrical device. "This is a neural inhibitor. It will protect you from the neuronet's influence at least for a short time, long enough for us to stop Graves." Nathan took the device, turning it over in his hands. "What exactly is the neuronet?" Zephyr's face darkened. "It's a neural interface designed to connect directly to the human brain. It grants enhanced cognitive abilities, faster reflexes, and control over machines. But it also has the potential to override free will, turning those connected to it into mere puppets of the Dominion." Reeves's eyes widened. "Graves is planning to use this to create an army of super soldiers, isn't he?" Zephyr nodded. "The Shadowblade is just a prototype. He has a fleet of AI-controlled ships, each one crewed by soldiers with neuronet implants. Once he unleashes them on the galaxy, there will be no stopping him." Nathan's mind raced, pieces of the puzzle falling into place. "The Voth, the other alien races, they don't stand a chance against that kind of power." "No, they don't," Zephyr agreed, "which is why we have to act now. I can get you out of this cell and to the Shadowblade's main computer core. From there, you might be able to find a way to stop Graves before it's too late." Nathan and Reeves looked at each other, a silent understanding passing between them. They had no choice. They had to try. "Lead the way," Nathan said, his voice steady and resolute. Zephyr nodded, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. She pressed a button on her wrist and the cell door slid open with a hiss. They moved quickly through the Shadowblade's dimly lit corridors, Zephyr leading the way with a sure, steady stride. Nathan and Reeves followed close behind, their senses on high alert for any sign of trouble. As they rounded a corner, they came face to face with a pair of Dominion soldiers, their weapons raised and ready. But before Nathan or Reeves could react, Zephyr was moving, her body a blur of speed and precision. She ducked under the first soldier's gun, her hand snaking out to grab his wrist and twist, sending the weapon clattering to the floor. She spun, her foot lashing out to catch the second soldier in the chest, sending him flying backward into the wall with a sickening crunch. Nathan and Reeves watched in stunned silence as Zephyr dispatched the soldiers with ruthless efficiency, her movements fluid and graceful as a dancer. She straightened, breathing hard, and turned to face them. "Come on," she said, her voice urgent. "We don't have much time." They reached the main computer core without further incident, the door hissing open to reveal a vast, cavernous space filled with pulsing lights and humming machinery. Zephyr led them to a console at the center of the room, her fingers flying over the keys with practiced ease. "I'm patching you through to Hector," she said, her brow furrowed in concentration. "He's been communicating with the Shadowblade's AI, trying to convince it to question the Dominion's actions." Nathan's heart leaped in his chest. "Hector, he's alive?" "For now," Zephyr said, her voice grim. "But we have to hurry. Graves' fleet is already on the move, heading for the Voth homeworld. If we don't stop him now, it will be too late." A holographic display flickered to life above the console, revealing Hector's familiar face. His eyes widened as he saw Nathan and Reeves. "Captain," he said, his voice filled with relief, "I knew you'd find a way." Nathan grinned a fierce, determined smile. "You know me, Hector, I never give up." Hector's face grew serious. "I've been talking to the Shadowblade's AI, trying to convince it to help us. It's starting to question the Dominion's actions, but it's afraid of what will happen if it defies Graves." Reeves stepped forward, his bionic eye glowing bright. "Then we'll just have to give it a reason to fight, a reason to believe in something greater than the Dominion." Nathan nodded, his mind racing. "Hector, can you access the Shadowblade's weapon systems, its shields?" "I believe so, Captain, but what are you planning?" Nathan's smile was grim. "We're going to take this ship, Hector. We're going to use it to stop Graves and his army once and for all." Zephyr's eyes widened. "You want to infiltrate the Dominion's main base? That's suicide." "Maybe," Nathan said, his voice steady. "But it's the only way. We have to destroy the Neuronet control center before Graves can activate his army. It's the only way to protect the universe." Reeves nodded, his face set with tenacity. "I'm with you, Captain, to the end." Hector's hologram flickered, his face a mask of concentration. "I've accessed the Shadowblade's systems. I can give you control of the ship, but you'll have to act fast. Graves' fleet is almost at the Voth homeworld." Nathan took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. This was it, the moment of truth. "Let's do this," he said, his voice ringing with conviction. "For the Arcadia, for the Omega Force, for every human and alien in the galaxy who refuses to bow to the Dominion's tyranny." He turned to Zephyr, his eyes blazing with a fierce, unyielding light. "Take us to the Dominion's base. It's time to end this, once and for all." The Shadowblade tore through the void, its sleek hull slicing through the inky blackness of space. On the bridge, Nathan gripped the arms of the captain's chair, his eyes fixed on the display. Beside him, Reeves and Zephyr worked frantically at their stations, their fingers flying over the controls. "Incoming transmission from the Voth High Command," Hector reported, his voice echoing through the tense silence. Nathan nodded, his face hardened. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, and the image of a Voth commander appeared, his compound eyes glittering in the dim light. "Captain Gordon, I am Commander Zaxus of the Voth Imperial Fleet. We have been monitoring your progress and have come to the conclusion that the Dominion poses a far greater threat than we initially believed." Nathan leaned forward, his heart pounding. "What are you proposing, Commander?" Zaxus clicked his mandibles. A temporary truce and alliance. Our forces will join yours in the assault on the Dominion stronghold. Together, we may have a chance to stop Admiral Graves before it's too late. Nathan glanced at Reeves, who nodded grimly. He turned back to the view screen. We accept your offer, Commander. Send us the coordinates of your fleet, and we'll rendezvous as soon as possible. As the transmission ended, Nathan rose from his chair, his eyes blazing with purpose. Hector, set a course for the Voth fleet. Reeves, gather the Omega Force and prepare for battle. Zephyr, I need you to work with Hector to find a way to neutralize the Neuronet. The crew sprang into action, a flurry of activity filling the bridge. Nathan stared out at the stars, his mind racing. They were heading into the heart of the enemy's territory, facing an adversary with unimaginable power. But they had no choice. The fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance. Hours later, the Shadowblade and the Voth fleet dropped out of warp on the outskirts of a dense nebula. The Dominion stronghold loomed before them, a massive space station dripping with weapons and defenses. Nathan stood on the bridge, surrounded by his allies. Reeves and the Omega Force soldiers checked their weapons, their faces grim. The Voth warriors, clad in their chitinous armor, stood ready to fight alongside their former enemies. "This is it," Nathan said, his voice steady. "We've come too far to turn back now. We'll hit them hard and fast, fight our way to the Neuronet control center. Graves is mine." The Allied forces launched their assault, a swarm of ships and soldiers descending upon the station. The Dominion's defenses lit up the void, laser fire and missiles crisscrossing the battlefield. Nathan and Reeves led a strike team through the station's winding corridors, cutting down Dominion soldiers with ruthless efficiency. Zephyr guided them via comlink, her knowledge of the station's layout invaluable. They reached the control center, a vast chamber filled with pulsing machinery and glowing screens. And there, at the center of it all, stood Admiral Graves, his eyes blazing with madness. "You're too late," Graves sneered, his body enveloped in a shimmering aura of energy. "The Neuronet is already active, broadcasting across the galaxy. Soon, every sentient being will be under my control." Nathan and Reeves charged forward, their weapons firing. But Graves was too fast, too strong. He moved like lightning, dodging their shots and striking with devastating force. They fought with everything they had, trading blows and gunfire in a desperate dance. But Graves was relentless, his enhanced abilities fueled by the Neuronet. In a final bold strategy, Nathan tackled Graves, grappling with him on the floor. Reeves seized the opportunity, firing a point-blank shot into Graves's chest. The Admiral staggered, his aura flickering. But he laughed, a cruel, mocking sound. "You think you've won? The Neuronet cannot be stopped. It's already uploading to a hidden network of satellites ready to enslave the galaxy." Nathan and Reeves stared at each other, horror dawning on their faces. They had come so far, fought so hard. But it still wasn't enough. Zephyr's voice crackled over the comlink, urgent and strained. "There's only one way to stop it. I can upload a virus to the Neuronet, destroy it from within, but it will mean the end of the Shadowblade, and Hector too." Nathan closed his eyes, his heart wrenching. Hector, the loyal AI who had been with them through everything, the Shadowblade, their one chance at victory, to lose them both. But there was no other choice. The enslavement of the galaxy, the end of free will, it was a fate worse than death. Nathan opened his eyes, his gaze locking with Reeves's. A silent understanding passed between them, a grim acceptance of what had to be done. "Do it," Nathan said, his voice barely a whisper. "Upload the virus, save the galaxy." Zephyr's fingers flew over the console, tears streaming down her face. The room filled with a blinding light, a searing heat. Nathan and Reeves held each other tight, bracing for the end. And then silence. The Neuronet, the Shadowblade, Hector, all gone in a flash of searing code and sacrifice. The galaxy was free, but at what cost? Nathan and Reeves staggered from the wreckage of the station, their hearts heavy with grief and loss. The Allied forces, battered but victorious, gathered around them, a sea of solemn faces. There would be time to mourn, to rebuild, but for now they had to keep moving forward to ensure that the sacrifices made were not in vain. The galaxy had been saved, but the scars left behind would linger forever, and Nathan knew that he would never forget the price they had paid for freedom. Nathan's heart ached as he nodded to Zephyr, giving her the go-ahead to upload the virus. He watched as her fingers flew across the console, tears streaking down her face. The weight of their decision hung heavy in the air, the knowledge that they were sacrificing not only Hector and the Shadowblade, but also the lives of their allies who had fought so bravely beside them. As the virus began to spread through the neuronet, the Shadowblade shuddered and groaned, its systems flickering and failing. Hector's voice crackled over the comms, distorted and filled with static. "Captain, it's been an honor serving with you. I'm sorry it had to end this way." Nathan swallowed hard, his eyes stinging. "The honor was mine, Hector. Your sacrifice will never be forgotten." On the view screen, the Dominion's base loomed before them, a monolithic structure overflowing with weapons and defenses. Hector's voice rang out one last time, steady and determined. "Initiating collision course. Impact in 30 seconds. The bridge fell silent, the crew watching in awe as the Shadowblade surged forward, propelled by Hector's unstoppable drive. The Dominion's defenses opened fire, laser beams and plasma bolts streaking through the void, but the Shadowblade pressed on, its shields absorbing the onslaught. Nathan gripped the arms of his chair, his nucleus tightening, as the Shadowblade plunged into the heart of the base, a brilliant flash of light erupting from the point of impact. The explosion ripped through the structure, secondary blasts chaining through its core, until the entire station was engulfed in a cataclysmic fireball. The shockwave slammed into the Arcadia, sending the ship tumbling end over end. Nathan held on tight, his teeth rattling in his skull, as the inertial dampeners struggled to compensate. When the ship finally righted itself, he staggered to his feet, his ears ringing. "Damage report," he barked, his voice raw. "Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7, Reeves reported, his face grim. "Life support is failing in sectors 2 and 5. We've lost main power and are running on emergency backups." Nathan nodded, his heart heavy. The Arcadia had taken a beating, but they were alive. They had won, but at what cost? He turned to the view screen, where the remnants of the Dominion's base drifted in a field of debris. The Voth and Alliance ships hung in the void, battered but victorious. A hail from the Voth flagship crackled over the comms. "Captain Gordon, the Dominion has been defeated. We owe you and your crew a great debt of gratitude." Nathan took a deep breath, his eyes filled with sorrow. "We all made sacrifices today. Let us honor those who gave their lives for the greater good." As the comm channel closed, Nathan slumped back in his chair, his gaze drifting to the empty seat beside him. Zephyr was gone, her life given in service of a cause greater than any one person. Her sacrifice, and Hector's, would forever be remembered. The Arcadia limped back to Earth, its crew exhausted and mourning. They had saved the galaxy, but the price had been high. Nathan stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars, his mind churning with unanswered questions. The Dominion had been defeated, but their existence had shattered the fragile balance of power in the galaxy. And there were whispers, rumors of other human factions lurking in the shadows, their agendas unknown. The future was uncertain, and Nathan knew that the Arcadia and her crew would need to stand ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. For now, though, they would rest and recover, honoring the memory of those who had fallen. The fight for freedom was nowhere near the end, but they would face it together, united in their tenacity to protect the galaxy from any threat, regardless of the cost. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.